Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here. Of course, we are together again, on our weekly, powwow together, I guess you'd say, on the Real Geeks Facebook page. So, I was going to be talking about a conversation, 7 steps to increase buyer conversion. And I may touch on that just a little bit, today. But the reality is that I'm getting so many requests right now to talk a little bit more about the NAR settlement and what does that mean? What do we need to be doing right now? And so I'm gonna kind of like call an audible and talk about that briefly. Of course, I'm not an attorney by any means, and so I'll stay away from any legal issues. I'm not interested in talking about commission splits and steering people and all that other stuff. That's just nothing that we need to be doing or ever, but surely not having conversations in open forums like this. But I just kind of wanted to think about conversion, and I want to give some people maybe a different perspective. Right now in social media, we see there is a lot of doom and gloom out there. You got all these agents that work with buyers, and they're saying things like, "Gosh, I need to be a listing agent. I shouldn't work with buyers anymore." And I'm thinking, why? What happened here? How did we get there? Like, if you think about what really changed with this NAR settlement, for the most part, and to give a little brief summary and kind of paraphrase, what has really changed? NAR agreed in the settlement that they'll no longer share what compensation will be between a listing agent and a buyer agent, or a buyer and a seller. So in other words, the field that we would at one time were allowed to put a co-broke commission in, kind of a what's the co-broke commission field, that field's going to go away. So it's kind of like a button goes away, or that's what really happened. Okay. And maybe another thing that's going to happen is that we have to get the buyer agency agreement signed before we start touring properties, which is really, we already had to get the buyer agency agreement signed. So it's not like there's a new document that an agreement. Maybe the agreement changes a little bit, but for the most part, the process of getting a buyer agency agreement signed, I mean, there's very few states that didn't require that already. Now it's just like, when do you have to get it signed? Are you getting it signed right before you write an offer? Are you getting it signed after you show property and establish rapport? Well, now you have to get it signed according to the settlement, prior to touring property. So is that really that big of a change? So if you think about what has actually really changed, when you look at the technical documents, we see that a field in the MLSs goes away. So yes, maybe you have to call somebody to find out what their compensation agreement, or do you even have to call an agent to find out what their compensation agreement is? If you're working with a buyer and you have a buyer agency agreement and you have a compensation agreement already signed with your buyer agent saying that you're going to request that the seller, pay for that, and it becomes a negotiable term inside of, the back and forth negotiations you have once you write an offer, then as long as you got your own compensation agreement, you don't really need to know what the compensation is being offered, or if there's none. So if there's no compensation being offered, you're not going to avoid showing the property. You're going to already have your compensation agreement established with your buyer, and you'll still show the property. So what has changed? What has changed is we have to have that compensation agreement signed, right, with the buyer agency agreement. Yes, we have to have that. So that's changed. Okay. So how does that make a buyer agent go away? I don't like, so when we look at Facebook pages and we look at social media and some of these real big social media platforms, we have to be careful that we don't get sucked into the doom and gloom. I want you to take note of something. If you look at some of the biggest producers in America, whether they're leaders of large teams or companies, or whether they're huge producers, like just mega producers, notice that none of us are actually speaking doom and gloom on this situation. When you really look at the people who are commenting and spreading all this negative energy and all this worry and fear, if you look at them and you really look and were to track, they tend to be the people that are not that engaged in real estate sales. In other words, like there are people doing maybe a few transactions a year, and they're not necessarily, all of them are not full time. They're not fully committed. It's like the people that are really spreading all the doom and gloom and all the negativity are the ones that are not really that engaged and in touch with what's going on with the reality of real estate sales right now. They're not the ones doing hundreds of sales, 50 sales, thousands of sales. The ones that are doing like the big business, notice the true influencers, the people that really have a lot of knowledge in the industry, they don't have a lot to say. Because the only thing that really changed is a button's going to go away in the MLS. And now we know it's defined as to when we actually have to have that agency agreement signed. And yes, you'll have to protect yourself with a compensation agreement. That's what's really changed. Now, I'm paraphrasing again. You could go through. I've read the entire court case, and the final document is 108 pages. I read summaries from different board associations and Association of Realtors, different state level, the national level, and I'm kind of taking like the main points, and I've already shared them today. There's not that much there. But if we think about what agents are saying and what they're fearing and how they're communicating, you would think that, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Buyer agents won't be able to make any money. I don't even know how that conversation comes about. All the buyers will go to listing agents. They can't handle it. They wouldn't even be able to process that. Well, they could hire a bunch of assistants. Okay. Well, what's going to happen when the issue really comes up, which is not really in this court case, which is, can the listing agent really honor their fiduciary duties to both parties? Wouldn't for that to happen, wouldn't we be going back to the buyer really has no representation? No, Greg, my state allows dual agency. Well, I mean, really, in dual agency, isn't that kind of like one person is getting a little bit less? I mean, how do you really make sure that everybody has equal representation in dual agency? That's not that that's hard. That's not that easy, I should say. Can imagine the lawsuits that are going to come about from everybody now going to one agent and the confusion on who represents who. So I just wanted to share with you all one thing about conversion, because I talked about and said I was going to talk about conversion. I'm going to take this conversation, the 7 steps to increase buyer conversion, and have and repeat it in the next coming weeks. But because today I'm not really going to present it, but I want to talk about the NAR and how it affects conversion, could affect conversion. So, that conversation we constantly have about speed to lead? I don't think that conversation has ever been more important than it is today. Speed to lead. Well, Greg, why? Why speed to lead? Why are you talking about speed to lead? You've been talking about that for so many years. When a coach talks about something for so many years, it's because the listeners have not actually listened yet. Speed to lead, you better listen. You better execute. Because the first person who talks to the lead will be the first person who shows property to that lead. The first person who shows property to that lead will be the agent who has a buyer agency agreement. So therefore, after you get the buyer agency agreement signed, before touring the first property, no other agent can get the buyer under a buyer agency agreement. Buyer agents are sitting here saying, I need to be a listing agent. You now are. What do you mean I now am? You're now a listing agent. What do you mean? I work with buyers. Yeah, you list buyers. See, the glory that everybody looks at from a listing agent standpoint, here's the thing. A listing agent, one of the benefits of being a listing agent is you have a contract with the consumer that guarantees you payment for a specified period of time. Let's just assume it's 6 months. If they sell to their own buyer, you have a contract that they pay you. If they sell to your buyer, you have a contract that they pay you. If another agent sells it, you have a contract that they pay you. That's the beautiful thing about being a listing agent. But now that there will be a requirement based on this settlement for you to get a buyer agency agreement signed on day one, you now have a contractual obligation. You have a contract now with buyers way earlier in the process. So when a buyer talks to you, you show them property, you have them under a buyer agency agreement, and then they turn around and go back to their home state. And then all of a sudden, after 2 to 3 weeks, they stop talking to you because they lose interest. And then in 2 months, you call them back and you find out they already bought. Well, how did that happen? Well, they bought because they went to another website. They talked to a different agent. That agent said something good. They went and looked at a property. They wrote a contract and they forgot about you. But in the future, that's going to happen a lot less. Why? Because they're under contract with you. You now have them listed. There's not enough people talking about this. And I can promise you, there's not going to be people talking about this. I mean, a few people are going to hear this, and there'll be a coach that hears this, and they'll actually take what I just said and probably build a program around it. Cool. They're going to be opportunists. No worries. Hey, just need the message getting out. See, what the top agents and leaders are doing right now is we are busy thinking about the adjustments we need to make to put ourselves and our clients in the best position to win. That's what we're doing. We don't have time to think negative right now. We're focusing on what adjustments we need to make in order to put ourselves in position to win with our clients. It dawned on me the other night. I'm like, wait, buyer's agents are now listing agents. They're listing buyers. They will have contractual obligations. They will have duration of time that they're guaranteed to get payment. When I say guaranteed, meaning, of course, somebody can breach a contract. They can terminate your listing agreement, right? That can happen. So I use guaranteed loosely, but it's a way better position than we were before. Buyer agents were so frustrated because these buyers go on another website and another website and another website. And then now what's going to happen is agents are going to be asking this question when they get a new lead. Hey, yes, when would you like to take a look at the property? By the way, are you under contract with any other agent? And they're going to say, well, I did sign something. Well, did you sign a buyer agency agreement? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm not going to be able to show you property. Wait, listen to me. If you exercise speed to lead, you'll be the first person to set an appointment to get a buyer agency agreement signed before you're showing property. Now you have them under a contract. Now, I'm not telling you what the verbiage in that contract should say. You're going to talk with your broker in charge and leadership in your company. Hopefully there's leadership in your company that's addressing these things. And if they're not addressing it now, they probably will very shortly. They're trying to figure out what in the world they need to tell you. So just hang tight. It's only been about 72 hours, since this has been going on. But I just wanted to give you that little bit of tip that one way that you can improve conversion is you can get more buyer agency agreements signed before you start touring properties. And now you've got to contract them for a duration of time. Now other agents won't call them as much. They'll have more loyalty to you. Your conversion will go up. You will work with fewer people that buy through your competition. Now, all of us in Real Geeks, we could all call our databases right now. If we all called probably 1,000 people in a database, we would probably find 100 of them have already bought. And probably 95 of them bought, or 90 of them bought with somebody else. A lot less people will be able to buy with somebody else. Now, we better pick up our game. We better demonstrate value. Sure, we got to do that. But great. This is all, in the end, going to make us all become better professionals and serve the consumer at the highest level. That's the glass is half full mindset. That's the be the solution mindset. And I challenge every one of us within Real Geeks, I challenge every one of us to focus on speed to lead. Go out there, set a boatload of appointments, and start getting those buyer agency agreements signed now. We know in July, unless something changes, according to the settlement, it looks like sometime in July, it'll be kind of mandated. But is this a bad thing? See, it might be an uncomfortable thing, but because something makes us uncomfortable doesn't make it bad. Matter of fact, if you haven't been going to the gym and working out, go to the gym and lift some weights. The next couple of days, you're going to be sore. You're going to experience discomfort. You're going to be uncomfortable for a week or so. But after we get through the discomfort, we're going to be stronger. Now, a lot of people will choose, I'm not going to go to the gym and lift weights. I want to avoid being uncomfortable. You get weaker the longer you keep resisting. So that's a message I want to share with you. Hey, look, a lot of you know, and because I'm going to be dealing with us a lot, meaning I'm going to be coaching on this a lot. A lot of you know that I have a coaching program called Real Geeks Mastery. And that's where I teach on all the things about Real Geeks. As a matter of fact, I think this week I might have to touch on this conversation a little bit with the clients, with my coaching clients. But in the next couple of weeks, what the plan was, even this week, was I was going to pull, say, a Real Geeks website, somebody that's in our coaching program. They give me permission to actually put their website up on screen. We look at access the back end, and we do an audit, and we look at how you could optimize your website better. How could you generate more traffic to your website? Your keywords, your meta tags, and all these different things that a lot of people have a hard time understanding. We're going to be in coaching. We're going to be screen sharing and recording our screen share to give back to our coaching clients, exactly how you can make your websites better. With Real Geeks, it's not it's not an expense. It should be an investment. We should be getting a return on our Real Geeks website. So if you're interested in learning a much more higher level way to use Real Geeks and start getting more leads, doing more business, check out rgmastery.com. I'd love for you to join the coaching company. It's very inexpensive, no contracts, tons of value. There's probably 100 videos already, tutorials that you can look at right now and just learn about everything you can think of. And we just continue to grow that. What do we need to do? We need to disengage from all of those Facebook posts that are doom and gloom. Don't participate. Don't even respond to them. Don't give them the time. See, I said to a group of people earlier today, if you drink enough alcohol, you'll get drunk. And when you get drunk, a lot of times you'll make bad decisions. Well, if you consume enough negativity, then you'll become negative. And when you become negative, you don't necessarily make the best decisions. We can either be part of the problem or we can be part of the solution. And one thing that you got from me is you've got my commitment to be a part of the solution and not contribute to the problem. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you what, I have the commitment and the energy to seek the answers. And through that process, we'll continue to share them with you, whether or not you join Real Geeks Mastery, where I can go deep into like what you need to be doing, or whether or not you just pop in here, each week and listen to this free this free conversation that I have here on the Real Geeks Facebook Mastermind group. Sure, you'll always be able to get some nuggets, but what do we need to do? We need to avoid all the negativity. Do not participate in that. You need to go in and start calling through your database, set up as many appointments you can, and get as many buyer agency agreements signed. Be aggressive on that. And when you get a lead and you think that you've got time to call them back, you don't have any time to call them back. You call them back right then. Because if somebody else gets them, sets an appointment to show, and gets a buyer agency agreement, you might as well delete that lead from your system. Not going to be able to work it until that buyer agency agreement is severed, which it may never happen, and you probably wouldn't know if it did. It's not as bad as we think it is. The only thing that changed is the field's going to go away in July. That demonstrates or displays the co-broke commission, and we now have to get buyer agency agreements signed before touring property, which before we were getting them signed towards the end, right before making an offer. That's what a lot of agents were doing. All right, everybody. We'll leave you with that. Next week, I'll talk about more normal stuff, unless there's more things that come up that we need to discuss with the NAR settlement. But right now, focus on conversion by speed to lead, and then the conversation around the 7 steps to increase buyer conversion. I will have that in the upcoming week, so I won't skip the topic. I'll give you that information, but I just wanted to go ahead and make sure that we did that. That we discussed this today. Check out rgmastery.com. I would love to coach you to a higher level. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.